Hello, everyone. Welcome to Three Essential Questions, New Mexico's Business and Nonprofit Podcasts. I am your host, Pam Myers, and my astonishing, wonderful co host is Eric Yoakum. We are here today with Ashely, and Ashely, I apologize. I didn't ask you how to pronounce your name. Charzuk? Is that
Yeah,
close? Yes,
exactly
okay.
like how it's spelled.
Okay,
Right.
all right. Ashely Charzuk. And Ashely is with the New Mexico Harm Reduction Collaborative. They promote health equity through safe drug use, overdose prevention, and destigmatizing syringe access services and overdose prevention. So I'm looking forward to hearing about what your organization does other than what I've just announced, Ashely. So thanks for joining, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I had never heard of this is why I love doing this podcast because I learn this all the time. Like there's so much going on in New Mexico, and
Mm,
I'm in my little hole down here in Los Lunas, and I don't see a lot of this. So this is amazing. How did this get? Tell us how did this even get started? How do you get
yeah,
into
yeah,
something like
good.
this?
Hmm.
Yeah, well, for me personally, I have lived experience in IV drug use when I was younger. And a lot of the states that I had lived in or places that I'd lived in during that time, there just wasn't really a lot of, help for people that were struggling with IV drug use, especially in the form of trying to get something as simple as like syringes or works or things like that. When I say works, what I'm referring to is basically like just any of the supplies that you have to use in order to kind of like get what you need to get done, basically like anything that you need to cook shots of drugs and use drugs. Um so I had started using drugs at such a young age that like like a lot of people actually in this kind of like world, we just learn the way people tell us. Like, we learn from the people that helped us, like, oh, you do it this way, and if you're gonna reuse syringes, you do it that way. And so if you were given bad information from the start, then you're gonna
Hmm.
have bad outcomes the entire time. And then whenever you do eventually end up discontinuing drug use, those bad outcomes can be lifelong sometimes. um, so after kind of going through that myself, and as later on in my adulthood, when no longer using drugs, I've had to struggle with like some health problems and different things here and there that could have definitely like been easily prevented.
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
so having that lived experience also kind of put me on to wanting to work with people who were using drugs. So I actually started out my career in treatment and working in drug treatment. But when COVID happened, then it was when I kind of really, looked around, and I saw that the thing that people were asking for, that people who use drugs were asking for, like here in New Mexico and all over the place, wasn't more treatment. Like treatment is very easy to find here. Like treatment is actually fairly accessible here.
Mm,
But
yeah.
what they were looking for was, places that they could get safer drug use information and safer drug use products. Because once COVID happened, all the public health operations pretty much shut down. So all of
Mm,
the, state mandated syringe exchanges, things like that, all of them closed their doors. And at the time, I was working, in a clinic, like a methadone clinic, and I had about 75 or 80 people each week asking me where to get syringes and like what to do because they were experiencing, having to share syringes or reuse them.
mm.
And so I kind of thought, well, we'll just be like DoorDash, but with syringes. And then it just kind of built from there over time, as it became very popular very quickly.
Wow.
Okay,
That's
so
amazing.
I'm
I
sure
mean,
you answer this question probably 50 times a day, but why on earth would you give people ways to use drugs? I know the answer, but I want to put it officially on record. But so I'm sure you hear that like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Right? So what is your how do you answer that question?
Yeah, that's sometimes there are days where that's my favorite question, and there are days where I'm like, "Oh God." But
Again?
mhm.
Yeah.
Not again. Yeah.
but no, it's very important though, because there are sometimes I forget that there are people um who see drug use as, kind of like a malady. Like they see drug use as something that is like a character defect, and like why would you want to help somebody engage in maladaptive behaviors, like they're hurting themselves, they're hurting their communities, so on and so forth. And a lot of times we hear the word enabling used.
Mhm.
Um, so the way that I kind of explain this is that they're enabling with something that is kind of a made up term, that sits really well with, like abstinence based recovery efforts like 12
Oh,
step, or
okay.
it sits well with like treatment advertising and things like that. But the thing is that for just all of history, like people have used drugs, they're going to continue to use drugs.
Mhm.
And no matter what, they're going to find a way to do that, whether that's finding a syringe on the ground and picking it up and straightening it on a matchbook and using it, not knowing where it came from. Or it could be somebody coming into a place like NMHRC and sitting down with a harm reduction specialist and being able to actually have a discussion of like what size of syringes would you possibly need, what other needs do you have. So what it really comes down to is the fact that the only thing that we're really enabling is for people to have less of those bad outcomes, whether it's short term or long term. And we want
Mhm.
to see people actually get to a part of their lives where they're no longer in chaotic drug use. Like we don't care if someone uses drugs for the rest of their whole entire life, as long as they're in a place where they feel safe and they've minimized risk.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just like it's a fact of life, right? It is a product of our society. It's like you
Well,
can't
yeah, it's no different than
r-
drinking, right?
right,
Alcohol, which is
right,
perfectly
right.
legal, and everybody goes, "Oh, have a martini," but nobody goes, "Hey, here, have this instead." I mean, I'm a big
Right.
weenie. I
But
could never do injectable drugs, but I'm not gonna tell somebody else. I'm
mhm,
pretty much like that with everything in my life. I'm not gonna tell somebody else what to do with their life, right? Like, I got
right.
enough crapola going on over here for me in my
Mhm.
little world.
Yeah.
So it's
Without
great that
adding,
you can
right.
yeah, and information
Well,
is so powerful, right? Like you said,
it
if
is.
if they got bad information and you can counter that with good information to help them understand why reusing a needle can be dangerous, or why sharing, God forbid, a needle is so dangerous, right? You're
Right.
saving lives, you're saving futures, really.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And the majority of people that work and volunteer for your organization are all have lived experiences. Is that correct, Ashley? They've all been through the same thing.
Basically, and I mean, it's hard to call it the same thing because every individual experience is
Right.
so,
Right. Different.
unique to that person. But
Yeah.
I mean, really, what we kind of aim for, because there have been times where people look at that and they say, oh, okay, so what you're saying is that you only hire drug users. And a lot
Mm,
of times, like, that's how, people read it when they read it on the website or they read it in our mission statement. And really, what we kind of explain is that lived experience, like anything, it all exists on a spectrum, just like drug use exists on a
Mhm.
spectrum. So you may have somebody who, they have some kind of, drug use that they've been, doing their whole entire life, or whatever, where it's never impacted them negatively. And then you've
mhm,
got people who, have had been all over the spectrum, like myself. Like I've experienced chaotic drug use. I've experienced neutral drug use where there was no, no harm or benefit really. And then I've also experienced beneficial drug use, which was completely non-chaotic. So it's really, it's kind of like the same thing as saying that, like if you were to compare it to like working in a restaurant, so it
Mhm.
would be like saying we make pizza and everyone here has had pizza before and likes pizza. so
Right.
so these are
Mhm.
people that care about pizza. It's kind of a good way to
Right.
explain it.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, how, if do people just could reach out to you? Do you have regular, like, you do classes around the community? Is that
Or
correct?
you go out into the community? I mean,
You go
how
out
do
in the
people?
community? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we kind of do all of it. So for us, we have tried over the years to kind of like cover all the bases when it comes to making this more accessible for everybody, not just people that live in the international district who come into our drop-in center every day, but also making it accessible to providers or hospitals or businesses or anybody locally that wants it. Even in
Mhm.
some cases, like people that are just like residents in a neighborhood or something like that, where they're seeing syringes or they're seeing foil left around, and they call us and they want to have a class on, get other neighbors together and have a class on how to safely pick up syringes, or what is harm reduction. So I mean, I've done everything from teaching, I mean, like middle school students all the way up to PhDs, and then like everywhere in between for like the community. So we go out, they come in, we're just wherever people want us is kind of where we end up.
So
Mhm.
what is harm reduction?
I think
Specifically. Mhm.
the best way to put that is basically it's in the name. It's anything that reduces harm. So sometimes that can be as simple as like putting on your seatbelt, or making sure that you have fire alarms in your house and things like that. Or it can go all the way up, again on that spectrum, or it can go all the way up to making sure that you have somebody there when you're using opioids, because you can't give naloxone to yourself to reverse your own overdose.
Mm.
So it looks different, but when we talk about it in the sense of like the kind of work we do, we really we put it as like harm reduction is something that everybody deserves and needs in order to just have a safer experience with their drug use.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Have you seen over the I'm sorry, Pam. Were you good? You have
No, you go right ahead.
have you seen an uptick in users here in New Mexico, like say COVID? Or
I mean, that's hard to say because of the fact that we were kind of born out of need during the pandemic.
mm,
Mhm.
And so we started out as, I would say, like the first year that we were open, we served probably like a couple hundred people. And we were like, wow, we can't believe we served. I think if I remember properly, it was like a little over 500 people. And we were like, this
Wow.
is crazy. Like, that's so many people. And then this last year, and this is our fourth year, we served a little over 10,000 people.
what?
And
Wow.
we were
Wow.
like, whoa, this is, so each year it kind of has snowballed and grown, because there are so many more places that we're going and people that we're meeting. Like we're kind of all over the state now instead of just
Okay.
locally in
Mhm.
Albuquerque.
Mhm.
So
And
this
that's serving, like when you say serving, you're being teaching and talking and doing your outreach and stuff too, not just people who are coming in and looking for resources, like actual syringes and things. This is like 10,000 people now you're talking
statewide.
to in a year, right? That's like
Mhm.
Well, the funny
amazing.
thing is it's when I'm saying 10,000, I actually do mean unique encounters of people that got supplies. So that's
Wow.
10,000 people that came in, and they all have a unique code that's related to them. Like these aren't
Wow.
like repeat encounters. So yeah, I don't know if there's more people that use, but there's more people that use our services.
That's amazing.
Wow. It
I
is amazing.
right? Like,
And your services are free to anyone that comes to you? Is that how does that work?
Yeah,
Or is
basically,
there
we
Mhm,
have nothing that costs money ever and never will. Um,
mhm,
I mean, there was a time when we were low on funding where we used to charge for, things like Narcan trainings or things like that. If it were to be not, like if we were going to like a business, for example, or if, they wanted us to like go and do a conference or something big like that. And then there's definitely times where like there'll be an honorarium where they'll pay us like regardless, but we don't turn away anybody as far as like people who use drugs and getting services like coming into our drop-in center. They'll never ever spend anything on getting these things. Like these things are provided first of all by the state,
mhm,
because of the Department of Health, the way that the laws work here in New Mexico. We actually have a really great system, and we were the first state to have a harm reduction act, and the
uh-huh,
first state to have the all of the legislation needed for people not to be arrested if they're for example like responding to an overdose or things like that. So we get a lot of our supplies and everything covered by Department of Health. And even things that we don't get covered that we do buy out of pocket using things like grant money or donation money or things like anything that comes in, that stuff is also free. Like for example, the state doesn't pay for us to hand out food, but we make sure that we always have like, some kind of snack on hand that everybody gets for the day. Or if it's going to be really cold outside and we have to go to Costco and buy, as many hand warmers and, the Mylar blankets and all that stuff, like that comes out of our own pockets. And like, there's never going to be a time where we'll charge for any of that.
wow.
so I'm on your
Wow.
site and I'm looking, there's a shop
Mhm.
button and there's some really cool t-shirts. I noticed your sweatshirt, so I had to go look and
Yeah.
see what it is. And so people can actually buy these really cool sweatshirts and t-shirts and patches and things like that that have some pretty powerful messages on them. That's pretty amazing stuff.
Really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you were and people can make donations right through your
Yes.
website, is it?
Yeah, we
Mhm,
make it really easy with the donations. A lot of people will choose to do like a monthly donation or a
Mhm.
yearly donation or just a one-time donation. And with the shop where we have like hoodies and t-shirts and things like that, we try to keep the prices as low as we can so that way like we do get some profit from them, but also that it's still, if somebody wants something, it's not like outrageous to try and buy it. Like it's lower. We try to keep the prices lower than what they would be if you walked into like Target and bought something like
Right.
that.
mhm,
Right.
mhm. Wow. Yeah, yeah, that's very cool. Uh, is there anything, that you want to add, in speaking to the public through this podcast that we've not touched upon? I mean, you're doing such great work, and thank you for all of that.
Yeah, thank you. One thing that I'd love to touch on is that up until about a month ago, we had always been inside a really tiny building that was in really bad shape, and we were always trying to find like ways to patch up like our walls that were like coming apart and everything. And we were Like every time we give somebody a site visit, they would be like, "Oh my gosh, you guys see this many people and you work out of like 800 square feet and there's no
Mm.
floors and there's no ceilings
Wow.
and everything's held on by like a piece of duct tape." And
Wow.
so that was something that people would kind of like ask a lot, is like, when are you, or are you ever going to move into a bigger drop-in center? And as of January 1st, we actually moved across the street from our old address. So we're easy to find, but now we actually have a 3,400 square feet. We have like full, office space. Like everything in the building is has been renovated or changed to, lend to the work that we do. Like for example, the side of the building that handles like people that come in daily for syringe service and navigating and case management and all that stuff. Like it's all, set up so that's easy. And then we also have offices and things, but we're still kind of getting this whole thing figured out. So one thing we're asking for right now is volunteers, like people who have time to come and help us with like cleaning the space, because we
Mm.
actually got this building when it was in pretty bad condition. Like the old tenants had left everything in it.
Mhm.
um and then yeah, so we need people to help us get fully set up. We're just kind of like moving in. And we also love to have people that volunteer to do outreach with us, because it helps us get out into the community. When we have like, the more people we have signed up, it's like, okay, well, instead of taking one group of people out into one area, like we can split and like, have like me take, some people into this part of the international district, and then another outreach person of ours like go with this group to another place. So that's
Okay.
something we really always need.
Wow.
So
So
yeah.
you make a point of going out in groups and physically walking through areas and make sure people know that you exist and what you're offering them. That's great. Wow.
Yeah,
It's
there are a lot of people that will never make it into the drop-in center, just
Mhm.
whether that's because of disabilities. Like there are a lot of people that we know where we make, possibly house calls, or like maybe they're unhoused but they're in a wheelchair. And
Mhm.
even though our building is ADA compliant and they could come here, they are, not able to get from where they are out, or they can't get out of where they are.
right.
Right.
So we have to go to them, or just especially like women or people who sell sex. Like it's not common for them to be able to leave the areas that they're in. And so
Mhm.
for us to be able to go to them, it makes a huge difference, because then, they're not having to try and figure out a way to get to us and like feel safe coming here, when we can just walk up and, and build those relationships on the street.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
Wow. Ashley, thank you so much for all the
yeah.
work that you and
I'm gonna
your
put the website
team.
up one more time. So yeah,
Yeah.
nmhrc.org. You guys are
Org.
amazing.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
Thank you
like I
so
said,
much.
I never knew until today. So it's awesome that there's resources out there like you.
Tell
That's
people.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's pretty
Mhm.
pretty
Doing
humbling
such
actually. It's pretty wild.
it is
Yeah.
Well, thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being a guest on the podcast and sharing information about what you do. Hopefully it'll help to reach a few more people, create
Absolutely.
awareness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening.
And
Thanks to my
we'll
wonderful co-host.
yeah, me, that'd be me.
Eh,
And
that'd be
we'll
me.
see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Thank you.